Welcome to Real Talk. I'm your host, Brando, and welcome to episode 1. At Real Talk, we connect with industry professionals, deep dive into key real estate trends, and explore what's shaping Calgary's real estate market today. Today, I'm super excited to have Monica Oppal joining us. Monica, welcome to the podcast. To start, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Brando. I really appreciate you reaching out. I know this has been in the works for a while, so I'm really excited to be here. A little bit about myself. I grew up in a family of builders, so for me, real estate wasn't really a business. It was kind of a way of creating belonging, and I've always believed that development isn't about square footage or property lines. It's really about who feels welcome, who belongs, and how a neighborhood really comes alive. So placemaking is really at the heart of what I aspire to do in the years ahead, and I see myself being a part of this new generation, which is reimagining how real estate can be. I did my BCom at Haskayne. I graduated in 2021, and right after that, I joined a prop tech startup called Carrot, where I led business development and helped secure an 18 million square feet portfolio. And at the same time, I was working with Aspen Properties, which is Carrot's parent company. So I contributed to like a $1.2 billion commercial real estate portfolio. And this was all while I was completing my MBA at Ivy Business School. So now I'm the founder and creative director of Axia, where we're making high-level real estate marketing more accessible to any kind of builder. And we're bringing storytelling, culture, emotion into how spaces are sold and experienced. I also lead sales and marketing for Saddle Christ Living, which is a 43-unit townhome community, helping first-time buyers really find their footing in Calgary's Northeast. And beyond that, I serve as the youngest public member on Calgary's Housing Committee, and I recently became the youngest founding investor in Calgary Wild FC, which is basically one of the founding teams in Canada's first professional women's soccer league. Because for me, it really comes back to like this idea of fostering community. So yeah.
That was pretty amazing. Really good background. Honestly, I wanted to try to introduce you myself, but there was no way I was going to be able to kind of say all that and present it just like you did. Kind of first off, what kind of inspired you to pursue a career in the real estate industry?
Yeah, I honestly avoided real estate for the longest time. Like, I saw firsthand how life looked like. My dad was running from one project to the next. He was negotiating deals, managing trades, kind of doing everything by himself. And I think that comes with, being an immigrant and starting from like humble beginnings. So it was really inspiring, but at the same time, very exhausting to watch. I think I wanted something more stable. So I actually planned to go into real estate law. I wrote the LSAT, got my letters of recommendation, really spent those nights perfecting my personal statements, and I even got accepted. And then COVID hit. And then during that time, everything slowed down. And I had this period before I had to officially give my response to those acceptances to see, is that really something I wanted to do long term or not? And I realized how powerful spaces were for one at that time. So the built environment, it shapes how we connect, how safe we feel, how we build community. And for me, that became like purpose-driven work. So I pivoted, and one of my Ivy friends said to me, instead of the courtroom, I chose the boardroom. And as cringe as that sounds, I'm glad that happened and how everything played out. I really started to see technology and design playing a role in reframing how we experience space. And so, yeah, I guess we can discuss this a little bit later, but with the jobs I was taking on at the time, I was working right at the heart of Calgary's skyline. So I'm seeing it play out in real time, disrupting what we call real estate as a dinosaur industry, and really watching these new patterns of work from home and return to office unfold before our eyes. But then after a while, I think I wanted to really get closer to the human side of it all. So commercial real estate showed me how cities evolve, but residential really showed me why it matters. I think it's really deeply personal, and residential is where people find sanctuary. It affects everything, whether it's your well-being, your relationships, your sense of belonging. And when you think about it, I think we're always existing within spaces, whether it's like our four walls, a street, a skyline. And the way those environments make us feel often goes unnoticed, but it really does shape the rhythm, I want to say, of our lives. So that realization kind of changed everything for me. And I began to see real estate as anything but static. So again, real estate felt more natural, and I wanted to pursue it or approach it differently. So not really from a transactional lens, but a place from storytelling and placemaking. So even moving forward, I want to build spaces that reflect people's lives, their culture, their rhythm. And that's what keeps me here, creating spaces that feel alive, and they're not like mundane or copy paste architecture that we see everywhere today. It's something that I can shape that's lasting and really human.
That's an awesome explanation. I love the way you kind of explain that, because I find like a lot of people can think, a lot of real estate developers or development is kind of like evil, or there's a lot to it, but in reality, we're trying to create communities where people live, where people have their families. So I do love that aspect of real estate. Just wondering, you wrote the case for the Westman Center Real Estate Case Competition.
Yeah.
With AHC, or Attainable Homes Calgary. How did that opportunity come about? What was the experience like, kind of being involved with the competition?
Yeah, for me, it was such a full circle moment. Throughout my undergrad at Haskayne, I was always that student that was pursuing like case competitions, and even during my MBA, like Ivy is known for its case-based format. So yeah, I think being approached to write the case, it really felt special, and the opportunity came through my connection with the Westman Center. So I guess they knew about my real estate background, and they really wanted a case that was reflecting Calgary's market at the time. And I think they wanted someone that was kind of living it out and had enough experience to be able to translate those technical terms to like layman terms, really understand what or how the sites can be translated into like an opportunity, and place students into the roles of real developers. So yeah, again, around that time, I was finishing my MBA at Ivy. That experience was like so enriching for me, and I really wanted to bring that same learning experience back to Haskayne and give students the chance to think like real developers. So like you said, the case we wrote was based on a site owned by Attainable Homes Calgary, which, for those that are listening, really focuses on creating those accessible pathways to home ownership. And it was an incredible process. I got to engage directly with Jaden Tate and the team and design a scenario that challenged students to consider both financial feasibility and community impact. And then again, being part of the competition was also really rewarding. Seeing students like yourself analyze the case, debate ideas, and pitch your vision of like how you saw the site was like watching the next generation of real estate leaders really come to life. So it really enforced for me how important it is to bridge industry and academia to really help students understand that, development doesn't really happen like this, but like, why does it matter? And yeah, I'm excited to be writing this year's case as well.
Oh, you'll be writing this one? Oh, that's awesome. I'll be participating in that competition. I did really like last year's, because it was definitely a little bit different. It wasn't like just due to the attainable homes aspect, and it was a lot of problem solving I found with trying to make it affordable, trying to find that market for the people, and trying to make it work. Which can be very, very difficult. And thankfully that was like a city owned land, so definitely helped out the project a lot. And so I wonder, as the youngest member of the Calgary City Council Committee on Housing, what unique perspectives do you bring to the table, and what have you learned from this experience?
Yeah, I think being the youngest member, like I've had access to a front row seat on how complex housing policy really is and how deeply it affects everyday lives. Like it's insane that the role policy can play. And I come from the private side of real estate, but I've been part of a lot of nonprofit work. My undergrad research was focused on housing as a human right. So I've seen how affordability, accessibility, and cultural belonging really intersect. And so that is the perspective I try to bring, and it kind of bridges those worlds. I represent younger Calgarians, first-time buyers, students. So speak to the experiences of new Canadians and families who are often left out of these policy conversations. So a lot of my focus has been on equity and innovation. So how can we create more inclusive housing models, encourage gentle density, and design communities that aren't just affordable, but allow for that dignified and vibrant living. As we know, like Calgary's facing such an intensifying housing crisis. I think about like 1 in 5 households can't afford their home, and vacancy rates have dropped as well. I think just under 5%. And so the city has taken notable steps, whether it's approving more than 24,000 new homes, the citywide rezoning, we know about those as well, the Housing Accelerator Fund, and those related programs. There's recently been more investment in Indigenous and affordable housing, and the launch of Calgary's Affordable Housing Foundation. But I generally think that the next challenge is pace and alignment. Are we moving fast enough to match the urgency of the moment? And are policies being implemented in a way that connects government intent with real outcomes on ground? Because we can plan as much as we'd like, we're not seeing action. I feel like that's how that gap between what we or Calgary really needs is just growing. So for me, the key priorities are really streamlining approvals and development timelines and really fostering strong public and private collaboration. I think we've lagged in that part. So that's what I'm kind of pushing for. And what I've learned through this experience is that, again, like collaboration is everything. Developers, policymakers, nonprofit, citizens. I think we all want the same thing, and that's to make Calgary a place where people can build a life and really feel welcomed. So again, the challenge is finding that alignment and being a part of finding that balance. It's been eye-opening.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know Calgary is kind of a leader in Canada, and a lot of other cities are kind of looking at what Calgary's doing, especially like with the office to residential conversion. And I do think we're doing like pretty incredible compared to the rest of the cities, but we're still struggling to hit that mark because I think Canada needs about 5 to 6 million new houses built before 2030, 2035. So there's still a lot more work to do. What are some of the things that you think you can kind of change, or what are the new programs or things that are kind of coming in while you're on your City of Council?
Yeah, I don't think we're working on specific programs. Like the committee's really in place to ensure Calgary's housing strategy is playing out and we're meeting the targets, and we're really being able to identify, are there any marginalized groups that we're missing out on, or are we putting too much emphasis on certain groups? Really finding that balance between incentivizing developers while also, bringing non-market housing up to the front. I think that's where our focus lies. And again, for a lot of us at the table, it really is about like 3 things. Like, how do we influence the policy, or how do we influence the perception of, what is affordable housing and what is housing affordability? I think they're 2 different concepts. And the stigma around affordable housing, it runs pretty deep at like, it affects where it's built and how it's received. Sometimes we see like NIMBY, for example, some communities equate affordability with lower quality or higher risk, and that one's property is one of the greatest assets that one has. So when those perceptions are made, we really lose that opportunity to create inclusive and mixed income neighborhoods. So changing that narrative is really key. In my perspective, affordable housing should be seen as an essential infrastructure and not just like something that we do for charity, because housing is a fundamental human right. And then I would say partnership is something that we're pushing forward as well. Everyone around the table, when I'm saying like in our committee, they all come from different backgrounds. Some people have lived experiences of homelessness. Some people are, they associate themselves with larger private developers. A lot of them are working within the nonprofit sector. So it's like, how are we able to collaborate and use everyone's gained experiences and knowledge to push out the strategy and really meet those targets that we have set out in the strategy. So partnership is important. I don't think a single sector can solve this housing crisis alone. Developers, policymakers, nonprofits, community advocates, they all bring something different to the table. So again, when they collaborate, that's when you're going to see these new innovative financing models, new shared equity approaches, purpose-built developments that really reflect the community need. So for me, it's about rethinking these systems, shifting these mindsets, and building together. So yeah, these are the things that we're pushing out at the committee.
That's awesome. So when you've worked at Aspen Properties and Carrot, two companies that are really helping redefine the future of real estate and what it looks like. Can you tell us a little bit more about your experience working with that team, how you see those businesses changing the game in the real estate space?
Yeah, I would say, honestly, Aspen and Carrot, both, they've been really formative experiences for me, especially out of undergrad. They kind of represent two sides of the same coin. So Aspen is a legacy real estate owner and operator. It has over 4 million square feet across Calgary and Edmonton. And Carrot has emerged as that prop tech startup born from that ecosystem, which really strives to bring innovation into an industry that's often slow to adapt. And that's why earlier in our conversation, I called real estate a dinosaur industry, just because it's infrastructure or the way that it operates, it's kind of traditional and it hasn't really changed much until the recent years. So at Carrot, I joined as the first development or business development hire. I was working right at the intersection of technology and real estate. So it was a true startup environment. We were building the plane as we flew it, I want to say. And Carrot didn't really try or start by inventing a problem. It came from necessity. And we needed, as in we, like the real estate operators, owners, they needed like an all-in-one software solution. So you could streamline communication, operations, tenant experience. And when we couldn't find one, we built it ourselves. And it turned out others in the industry were kind of facing the same challenges. And then working with Aspen at the same time gave me the other side of the picture, scale and legacy. Aspen has always been ahead of the curve when it's been about how can you reimagine what downtown can be. And so what you just alluded to, one of the projects I supported in its early stages was Palliser 1, which is one of Calgary's flagship office to residential conversion projects. So we worked alongside the city and capital partners to secure the funding. And now it's become such a powerful example of how adaptive reuse can really breathe new life and rejuvenate downtown, and then you're using vacant office space. That dual exposure, startup innovation and institutional execution, I think it really shaped how I see the future of real estate. I think we need to move beyond new builds and really think or rethink what exists now and how can you design those spaces that are being unnoticed and serve how people are living and working today.
Yeah, that's amazing. Actually, Monica and I think originally met through, was it the RESA mentorship program? Or was it a different one? It was the RESA one, yeah. So she was my mentor, and she actually toured me around the ampersand, which I was at that time was kind of a big shock, or like very mind-blowing to me on how office space can be presented and created, because I think after COVID, everything really changed in the office space. A lot more increase, like there's a lot more vacancy, and there's a lot more people wanting to work from home. I absolutely love the environment they had there. Kind of like those food trucks that they had. It was like nice little vendors, good prices, amazing food. The technology in the building was amazing. Everything you need is just in one place. Honestly, it was like my world was turned upside down there. So would you be able to explain just a little bit more about how the kind of commercial office space part of real estate is kind of changing a little bit?
Yeah, I think you've given a perfect example, like the ampersand. Outlined all of its features, but yeah, I'm gonna focus on the ampersand and I'll tell you why. So Again, commercial real estate, it's shifting. Rather than people just coming to work and then leave, we see now it's really becoming more like an end-to-end experience where tenants or people that are working in Calgary's downtown aren't just going to these office spaces to work. They're really wanting to create connection and go for the energy. So I see that commercial real estate, a lot of these larger operators are bringing more like high class amenities and all of these things that kind of create this tenant stickiness. So anyone that's entering those buildings doesn't want to leave. So the ampersand, it's a great example of what happens when you design for that end user experience and not just for occupancy or just another leasing check mark. Again, after COVID, when so many downtown towers were sitting empty, Aspen took a different approach. They kind of reimagined what the modern workplace could feel versus just completing another repositioning. So the ampersand, like you stated, it offers more than 57,000 feet or square feet of amenities. And again, it's like anything from fitness and wellness facilities to a full conference center, tenant lounges, and a multi-purpose sport court. And so Aspen understood early that people don't come to the office just to work anymore. It's really about that connection. And the ampersand was built according to that philosophy. So again, when we did our tour, you could really feel it when you walk right in. There's that social staircase. It anchors the entire building, creates a natural flow between the people and the space. Then there's that library that I actually helped furnish, and it's layered with like soft seating. It has a living green wall, and it really calms you and gives you that tactile sense of belonging in the middle of downtown. So when you think work is overwhelming, you're able to just like go out and just sit there, take a breather. We have Little E Cafe, which really employs individuals with intellectual and development differences. And this is a small but deeply human detail that grounds that entire experience. It's not just a coffee shop. And then of course, like the indoor food hall that you said, it's one of the first in Calgary. There's custom food trucks that bring new vendors and new energy into the space year round. And one thing that they added after our tour was the and rec. So it adds another level of dimension, really leans into that wellness and play side of things. So there's a bunch of golf simulators, massage chairs, lounge zones, a lot of seating, large screens. So tenants can host, everything from team socials to after work watch parties. And it creates that sense of balance where you're able to not only like decompress, but you can connect, and it keeps bringing those tenants back into the building. So again, creating that stickiness. And as you said, again, the entire building, it's powered by Carrot technology. So everything from booking amenities to submitting service requests or unlocking a door, it's instantly done from your phone. And tenants can communicate in real time, host events, or access building updates instantly. So it's convenience that's enabled through technology. And again, it just enhances the user experience. So the ampersand works because it's human at every scale. It's thoughtful, connected, and it's really designed around how people live and work today. And that's why it's always full and like alive. And I think a lot of commercial real estate operators saw Aspen and the ampersand in particular as a case study. And now we're seeing that a bunch of them, like Suncor, for example, are bringing those amenities to ensure that tenants are entering those buildings and using it as much as possible.
That's pretty awesome. You had me at golf sim.
Yeah.
I don't know how much work I would get done if I had a golf sim.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, no. I promise I would do work, but I definitely enjoy that. So going back to the prop tech Carrot. So
Yeah.
I live in an old apartment building, and when you kind of showed me about that and kind of introduced me to that technology, I thought it was pretty awesome. I thought it would be so helpful for like a building like us to kind of use some of that technology. Like a lot of our stuff is just paper we tape
Right.
stuff in different places. People don't see it all the time, stuff like that. And I thought that it would streamline the process a lot and be very useful for, especially for someone like myself. But something I do worry about was some of the older people in the building, just like, will they be able to easily navigate it? Have you guys had a hard time in the past with anything like that? If you'd be able to share that.
Yeah, I know like when we say we're introducing technology, sometimes you have those demographics that aren't willing to adopt as easily as other generations that are, you know, technologies, it comes very intuitive to them. So we don't ever mean to like sideline them. I think we work side by side and ensure that there's no hesitancies when you're adopting it or moving forward with the technology. I think education is everything. So the app that Carrot has, whether it's like whenever it's white labeled, regardless of which operator is using it, it really starts with like, here's what you need to know. Here's like a simple walkthrough, just like when you would download any kind of app, you know, you have like that tutorial phase. So I think that eases a lot of hesitancies in the beginning. And we also do provide like the manual process if people absolutely don't want to use the technology. We're nobody to force them into using it. Whatever they're comfortable using is at the utmost importance. So, you know, even if you don't want to submit those digital service requests and you want to do it manually, like Aspen has those means. But again, circling back to the education part, we have user manuals, we have help desks, our customer service things that you can employ and ensure that you're using it or your hesitancies of using the app are minimized through it.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. I'm going to move on to one of the last questions before we get to our affordable housing segment. So you founded Axia. Could you tell us a little bit about what inspired you to start your own company, what it focuses on, and what your vision is for it going forward?
Yeah, so Axia really started from this gap that I kept noticing in the industry. I think working in commercial real estate and with these large real estate operators, we see that high level marketing is something that they constantly employ. They have the budget to do it, they have the means, but I was also behind the scenes working with developers who were doing incredible work, but they always didn't have the tools or the creative strategy to tell their story in a way that matched the quality of what they were building. And, you know, so many small builders in Calgary, they don't have that legacy or brand recognition that big names do. They're often dismissed because they're just a numbered company and they're also putting in the work and they're building from humble beginnings. So I wanted to make sure that strong branding and storytelling was accessible to them and not out of reach or overly expensive, because I feel like they also deserve to have their story told. So that was one part of it. And at the same time, I was kind of getting tired of how all real estate marketing kind of looked and sounded the same. It's always the same stock imagery, the same video tours, the polished renders, and like actors that don't even represent the communities being built. So I wanted to change that. I wanted real people in campaigns, the ones that these homes are actually for, and really bring authenticity back into the conversation. So right now, we're still in the early stages. Our flagship project, which I kind of talked about earlier, Settlecrest Living, it's really setting the tone for what Axia will become. And our tagline for this project is where home meets community. But for us, it's not really a tagline, it's more so a vision for the project. And the project is rooted in the idea of belonging. So we will be highlighting real families from the community, drawing from cultural heritage, showcasing that home ownership can feel both aspirational and attainable. And the campaign will really like architecture and emotion. So multilingual storytelling and intergenerational narratives is something that I would love to incorporate and really mirror the neighborhood that we're building in. And so again, it's deeply personal because it's about representation and seeing your story being reflected in the places that you live. I would say long term, I want Axia to evolve into a content house and more of a tastemaker for North America. Stay intentional and boutique, obviously, but we'll keep experimenting with new forms of media, spatial activations, and more storytelling formats that allows us to expand our creative ecosystem, but really keeping that purpose of storytelling in the center.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you very much, Monica, and thank you very much for joining the first podcast. It was awesome to have you on, and I hope you have a good rest of your day and a good Thanksgiving.
Oh, thanks so much, Brando. Again, I really appreciate you reaching out. This was a lot of fun, and yeah, hopefully something valuable came out of this conversation. I know it's always a good time talking to you, so yeah, not worry at all, but yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you.